Well, through a lot of this week, I had been struggling in putting a message together, or this message together, and it's interesting. Like all of my studying had been done really early, like for this one, and my routine, it wasn't really disrupted that much as far as timelines go, but it was clear by Tuesday afternoon that this was going to be difficult and to put together, and it became a little more personal than I would have wanted it to, and then Wednesday arrived, and I still had only been just kind of mulling things over in my head, but as far as having anything together that would look like a Sunday message, I wasn't anywhere close to that. And by Wednesday, I began to panic when that happens, but I didn't necessarily panic this time. It was just a challenge, and it started with our Jeremiah reading. And in reading through it for the first time, you get a pretty decent feel, I think, for what the prophet is saying. Just to go over a few of those words from our Jeremiah reading. Cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, who turns away from the Lord. He is like a shrub in the desert and shall not see any good come. And then there's the contrast that is also offered by Jeremiah. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream, and it does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves remain green, and is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. And so here you have Jeremiah, who's constructed two ways to move through life. And he states that there are these two options, and he hangs them side by side each other, where the contrast is clear to see and understand. And the picture that Jeremiah paints is really one that parallels two verses that are found in the book of Proverbs, I think 14:12 and then 16:25, where it says this, that speaks to this choosing life direction here. There is a way that seems right to man, but in the end, its end is the way to death. And so you have these two parallels, and maybe these two verses too, perhaps they're even the inspiration to that famous poem that Robert Frost had written years ago, The Road Less Traveled. It's a longer poem than I thought it was, and there's a few verses that kind of stick in your mind, and two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Two life choices. Two roads diverge in the middle of my life, I heard the wise man say. It's kind of philosophical, really, isn't it? And some really kind of get off on that kind of literature, like philosophical kind of literature, not just poetry, but that higher learning kind of thing. It's almost with a bit of pride, of what it is they choose to read, and so you can maybe have a conversation such as this. I read a really neat book the other day. Oh, what was that? What was that book? This is why I read Patrick McManus, and he's a humorist. Has anyone heard of Patrick McManus? Kara has. She has a series of 8, and he is really comical. What Patrick McManus, he's an outdoor novelist, and he's so funny. You have to read some of his literature, some of his stories. I could lend you a book if you want. Oh, no. Thank you for the kind offer, but that doesn't really sound like something for me at all. You see, I read authors such as Dostoevsky, David Hume, René Descartes, and the such. Some of the greatest writers and thinkers ever known to the world, or that the world has ever known. You have that, right? And it could be easy to gloss over Jeremiah and Proverbs, over what both authors are saying, and they are saying this: choices matter. Choosing or making decisions that concern only one's own self, well, that doesn't really have a very good end. If that's the basis, if that's the platform. Choosing God's way is the better way. It leads to life, it leads to contentment, it leads to peace, and that's all true. But I think that if this is all we gain from Jeremiah, we're not hearing everything that he has to say. That's something in and of itself, but there's more that's there, and there's more to consider when you read through him again, a second time. You see, I think that Jeremiah provides for us as readers an indispensable witness to a very complex reality, and it's the difficulty, and or even the often misguidedness of the human experience. And the human life that Jeremiah sees and experiences is one of real hardship and difficulty that is often at times exasperated by choices and inclinations that emerge from the depths of the human heart. And this is what I think that this two roads scenario, it becomes far much more than just a philosophical picture to wax and wane eloquently over. Because when standing at a crossroads in life, I think that poses a real dilemma, I think, in light of what Jeremiah says in verse 9. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? And it's this verse right here that made it difficult for me in putting a message together, because of an uneasiness over what I have wrestled with and do wrestle with in my own heart, and looking into the heart, into our own heart. I think that is to stand at a crossroads. Those two roads diverged. And when standing there, the magnitude of that moment can be completely lost or not even seen at all. Because yet how we will process that moment can be so important. It could very well have a very significant bearing on how deep our relationship or connection with God might actually grow. And it's a moment that requires an honest assessment, an honest look. And from what we find or see in our heart, what road or what direction will we then choose? The heart is deceitful above all things. I used to listen to news radio and the National and the like. I still do. I listen actually to the National every morning. The evening before, I listen to it in the morning, Monday through Friday if I get the chance. But I would listen to it, I could find myself listening to news radio almost all day if I had that, if I had that option, or that I could do that, like religiously at times. But I kind of dialed it back because it actually nearly would depress me at times too. Just what you will hear, scandals among politicians, scandals that involve embezzlement of other people's money, scandals of prominent celebrity figures who are abusing others whom they have power over, abuse that is violent or mental or sexual, and then there's children that are being abused. There's violence in our world that is being fueled by prejudice and racism and violence that's sometimes being exacted out in the name of God. What a world that we live in. And the thing of it is that the world has never really changed in this one regard, the human heart. It can be capable of so much bad. And we see it and we hear it every day in the news broadcasts, and so every now and then, I have to take a break from it. And I know that there's a lot of good that takes place too. But I don't want to hear all the bad stuff all the time. And yet when I stand at the two crossroads, or the two roads of my life, looking into my heart, at my issues and my struggles and my tendencies and habits and so forth that don't lead to anything productive, when I line them up against what I hear or see on the TV or the radio, I feel, whether I'm right or wrong, I feel that it kind of pales in comparison to what I see in others, be it the murderers or the abusers or the cheaters, and I don't think that I'm any of that or any of these, and maybe none of us are any of that and any of these. And yeah, maybe I would rather deal with what's in me than maybe with what is in a serial killer or other severely evil and wicked persons. But the point that I think Jeremiah makes is not to draw levels of severity of what is in the heart by categorizing it as awfully severe or highly severe or semi-highly severe or moderately severe or mildly severe. I think the point is simply this, is that we all deal with daily challenges, and none of these challenges that we deal with are as such that we can ignore them or dismiss them as not being that big of a deal, as being not so bad. And I think that building an argument or perspective based on comparison of what the level or perceived level of evil and disgust is in the world or within people, it completely misses the point of Jeremiah and Proverbs. Verse 10 of Jeremiah, I, the Lord, search the heart and test the mind. And God sees right through us, right into the heart of everyone, and provides a key to relief, a key that brings relief and freedom and peace so that we may have all of those things in life. And that's the intention of God, to bring you and I through whatever it is that does plague our heart and through whatever pain it is that's being experienced. And when looking into the heart, into our heart, in honesty, with an honest intention to move past strongholds and hindrances that are obstacles or whatever it is that holds us back, God is going to meet us there. He will meet us right there. Luke chapter 6, it speaks to the heart of God reaching out to the hurting and to all those who are in pain. Just a few excerpts or just a few summary of that passage. Blessed are you who are poor, who are hungry. Blessed are those of you who weep. Blessed are you who are in conflict with others. And these are the words of Jesus, and he's addressing what were real issues for so many people, first century people living in ancient Rome. And while people were literally hungry and poor and sad and broken in spirit, Jesus' words also acknowledge that there are an array of things in and around our lives that have an effect on us. And these are things that are ever present in this world and always have been. And that isn't a fatalistic admission either, because Jesus notices and he sees and he promises that it will get better. Not just in some future time, but in the here and now, it can be better. In the middle of difficulty, peace can come. And what I noticed, well, in verse 17 of Luke 6, there's something I noticed in these words. I'm just going to read through those opening verses there. And he, Jesus, came down with them and stood on a level place with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea and Jerusalem and the seacoast of Tyre and Sidon, who came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. And all the crowd sought to touch him, for power came out from him, and he healed them all. It's that first verse, verse 17, that caught my attention. Jesus came down with them and stood on a level place. And likely we probably all visualize that scene in this way, is that Jesus finds a place where he can stand among people, so look them in the face perhaps, on level ground, whatever, so that he can be among people, easily access them in conversation, a level place where no one is going to fall or trip over one another, a level place that is conducive for him and his disciples to minister to those who are there, those who are the brokenhearted. A level place. I think that this is what this verse, what it does imply. But those two words, level place, they caught my attention. And I kind of surprised myself a little bit, because I must have been listening in the classroom from time to time. There is an old prof. I remember an old professor who had said something about level places, and the word level, or whatever the Hebrew word might be for it, or how it may be used in the ancient world, it was used to in referring to places of battle or annihilation, suffering, misery, places of mourning and hardship. And now the likelihood is just this, is that the level place in Luke 6 that Jesus stood from was just that. It was level ground. But its reference from the Old Testament, and man, I think it makes it pretty interesting all of a sudden. And I don't want to over-allegorize this either. But with that background of ancient level places on mind, or in mind, it brings more to verse 17 now to me, of Jesus standing on a level place, on the battleground with the brokenhearted, with those who mourn, with those who are ensnared in sickness and in disease, and those who are battling some kind of inner turmoil, longing for relief, or those who are just needing some encouragement, inspiration, or affirmation. Jesus stands on that same plane, right among them, right among us, the same battlefield, and he brings healing to every person who comes before him. Boy, do I ever like it, like looking at it like that. And so then what are the level places in our lives today? Where is the battle within our souls being waged? How would or how does the enemy gain ground in your life? However it is, whatever it is, name it and know it, and be assured that Jesus will come. He will come down and stand right in the middle of that battleground, right in the middle of that level place, and heal you in your soul, because he says, "Blessed you are." And that word blessed, it refers to being aware that whatever your battle is, or however you feel about things, life, whatever you struggle with, Knowing that you are blessed by God not only keeps you afloat, it gives you that assurance that Jesus he will not turn his back away. But whatever it is, there is nothing that has the power to defeat or deflate you because you are blessed. Loved by God. And the beauty of all that is that there is no power on heaven or any elsewhere that can change that. You know, what we can go through in life with that assurance that Jesus is with me in my level place. That assurance, it lessens the anxiety that I sometimes feel over God seeing right into my heart. All of my struggles, which are often the same old kinds of things. I know what it's like. I know what relational conflict is. I know what it's like to feel bitterness and strain. I know what it is to regret a poor decision. But I also know that God sees all of this and gives me something to hold on to and to be encouraged by. And it may come through a risk in sharing with another what my struggle is, or it may come through a moment or a time of solitude and reflection. However it will be, Jesus will see me through. And while the struggles often remain the same through a lifetime, the assurance is still there that Jesus loves me. He's not going to leave me. Through it all, he loves me, and the work that he has begun in all of us, he's going to keep on working, carrying it on to full completion. And I like that too, because then it makes those burdens feel a little less burdensome, doesn't it? I read a story of a football coach this past week, and Tim might like this one. He coached the Buffalo Bills during the late 80s and into the mid-90s. His name is Marv Levy. Tim's a Southern Ontarian, that's why Buffalo, they're kind of skewed that way, cheering for Buffalo. But anyway, it was on a Monday night, and Levy's team was in Cleveland to play the Cleveland Browns on the Grand World Stage. See, Monday night is a big deal in the NFL. All of America is tuning in, all the football fans anyway, are tuning into that one game, because it's the only one being aired. It is a big moment. And there was something that was going on behind the scenes that only a few were aware of. And what it was is that Marv Levy had just been diagnosed earlier with prostate cancer. And he made the decision to not inform any of the players. He didn't want to distract them for the combat, I guess, that was ahead on the level plane of the gridiron. And before opening kickoff, and while standing on the sidelines beside one of his coaches on his staff, he turns to him and he said these words, "Just look around you. What a place this is. Babe Ruth hit home runs here. Jimmy Fox hit homers here too. And think about the great football players who played here, Jim Brown, Otto Graham. Isn't it magnificent? I mean, is there any place on earth you would rather be right now than right here?" And when Jesus says, "Blessed are you who weep, for you shall laugh," or "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God," or "Blessed are you who struggle from day to day with whatever," because blessed you are that you are not forgotten. Never forgotten. You will have peace. You will have joy. You don't have to worry about any of that. And blessed you are that I am with you here and now, standing with you always on your level place, for I'm with you always. And so then let me ask the same question again. Is there any place that you would rather be than to be in the presence of the one who calls you by name, who stands with you on any ground, be it level, be it other? Is there any other place? I don't think so. So in closing, I'm going to ask you to stand with me as we sing our closing hymn, the sweetest name of all. I'm going to ask the ladies to come and lead us in that.